Right now, business leaders are trying to add AI agents to just about everything. But AI agents aren't magic, they're tools. And unless you know when to use them and when not to use them, AI agents are likely to turn into very expensive AI mistakes. In this video, I'll show you when AI agents actually make sense and when they don't. You'll see which types of problems actually need reasoning and coordination that can be done by an agent, and what problems can be solved faster with more simple automation, predictive AI, or other types of tools. So, AI agents are getting a lot of attention right now. Over the last 6 months to a year, I have started to see just about everybody talk about how great agents are, but effectively, no one seems to know what they actually do and what they can't do, what their limitations are. There was kind of a funny joke years ago by author Nassim Taleb who said once your taxi driver starts giving you recommendations about something, it's probably a little bit overhyped. I haven't quite had my taxi driver talk to me about AI agents, but it feels like that's just about the case. Before we sort of get into some of the details, I want to emphasize that AI agents are very powerful when they're used in the right way. I also think that AI agents are going to get much more powerful over the next couple of years as we start to figure out much better architectures and design schemes to make them work even better. But if you're thinking about agents, the first thing that I want you to ask, and this is really the first thing that you should be asking with any AI strategy, is what problem am I trying to solve? If that problem requires reasoning, planning, multi step action and coordination, as well as tool use using various other types of technologies and tools in a business, an AI agent might be a good option. If your problem does not require those things, then maybe you need a different type of AI tool or maybe something different entirely. So, before we get into when you should and maybe should not use AI agents, let's very quickly review what an AI agent is. An agent is an AI based system that reasons, plans, and takes actions largely independent of a human being. Now, there are some architectures where a human is involved in an agent's work. We call that a human in the loop system. But for the most part, an AI agent should have some level of independent agency. Now, an agent typically has a large language model sort of at its core. It takes inputs either from a human, maybe from another agent or a different technology system, but it takes inputs and then processes those inputs using the LLM to kind of think through the query or the problem, put a plan together, and then start taking actions. Now, in order to do this, AI agents typically need tools or access to other systems. So you can give them access to things like calculators or spreadsheets, databases, APIs from other technology systems, and so on. They can use those tools in their planning and processing and actions. And ultimately, agents are typically doing this planning and processing and tool use towards some sort of goal to accomplish some sort of task. You can think of them like artificial employees, although don't get too hung up on that. In many cases, people are sort of disappointed in the sort of level of work that an agent can do. Right now, at least in 2025, an AI agent is often best used for sort of rudimentary or repetitive work. And furthermore, AI agents often don't work perfectly right off the shelf. They often need to be trained and so on. We can set some of that aside. This, though, should give us a kind of good overview of what an agent is and how it works. That leads us to our next topic. Here, let's talk about when using an AI agent actually makes sense. Agents really shine when you have a task or problem where there are multiple steps, where there's going to be a plan that's required to both determine those steps and execute on those steps. They're also useful when there's a dynamic or shifting input or context. So, in traditional software, we typically have very structured and consistent inputs and outputs. We know what those inputs and outputs are going to be. We plan for them and then we write the structure. If this, then that. That's traditional software. But with an AI agent, we often have context where the inputs shift or change. Agents also make sense where a system needs to orchestrate dynamically between different tools and data sources. So maybe for one query, it needs to use one set of tools. Then with a different query, it needs to use a different set of tools and different data sources. As those requirements and plans change, An agent is going to be much better than traditional software at dynamically thinking through a problem and adapting by using the right tools and right data sources at the right time. Agents are also really good for situations where you need not just automation, because other types of systems and software can do some automation, but agents are good when you need automation with maybe a bit of judgment. As I said previously, the large language component at the core of an AI agent acts as a sort of reasoning engine. So it can often think through a problem and figure out how to solve that problem where maybe traditional software might break. To kind of sum up here, and as I suggested previously, agents are most powerful in situations where you need a system that can think, plan, and act dynamically, largely without human input. Next, let's talk about where agents kind of don't make sense. First, agents don't make very much sense if you're doing kind of a simple automation. If you're doing a simple automation, you can often use just a simple programming script in a traditional programming language. You can often use tools like Zapier, where you can build somewhat simple automations. You can also build automations in certain types of business systems like CRMs or email marketing tools like Aweber or Kit. Many of these automation tools enable you to build a sort of workflow or a simple if then processing for your inputs, and they don't really need a lot of independent judgment. AI agents are often unnecessary for processes where the rules rarely change. So, in such a situation, again, you're going to use maybe some automation software or a quick script in a programming language, and you'll hard code the process logic with whatever system you're using. Furthermore, you're not going to use AI agents if you're trying to make very accurate and precise predictions. Now, this is something that I'm seeing a lot right now among business leaders. They say, we need AI agents. And then you start asking them, hey, what are your problems? They might need to forecast demand. They might need to forecast or predict churn. They might want to predict upsell propensity in a marketing context. An AI agent isn't really the best tool for solving those problems. If you need to make an accurate and precise prediction, you're going to use predictive AI. A little bit more specifically, we have a type of AI called supervised learning. We can use supervised learning to build predictive models that can predict things like demand, churn, upsell propensity, stuff like that. So if you need to make accurate and precise predictions, an AI agent is not the right tool. Now, I will say, once you build a system that can make good predictions, you can then feed those predictions into an AI agent for further processing, and it might be able to use those predictions for workflow automation. But an AI agent is often going to be kind of bad at making predictions itself. Finally, if you need to do something like fix your marketing strategy or go to market, you might be able to use an AI agent in some way, but really the gold standard tool or technique for rebuilding your marketing strategy or your go to market is probably going to be something more like AI based segmentation. Segmentation can be extremely powerful for fixing your go to market, sharpening your go to market strategy, sharpening your product strategy, and so on. So, if you have a problem with your marketing or your product strategy or your go to market, you're typically going to use segmentation first. Then you might actually end up using different types of AI like predictive models, generative AI, and even AI agents, but only once you have that foundation from the segmentation itself. AI agents can be extremely powerful when you have problems that need reasoning, planning, and autonomy. If you'd like to dive a little bit more into how agents work and the sorts of use cases that you can use them for inside of a business, I recommend that you check out this next video, AI Agents for Business. You can check it out right here.